Hey everybody, it's Bruce here with Traveling with Bruce. Welcome to my video today. It's all about the Coral Princess cruise ship. More developments. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you for thumbs ups. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for joining my Facebook group page. And thank you for following me on Instagram. Is that quick enough for some of you? All right, let's get into it. The Coral Princess cruise ship. It left Chile on March the 5th on a 2-week cruise around the tip of South America, and it ended up in Buenos Aires in Argentina on the 19th of March, on time. That day, March 19th, the ship was disembarking her passengers when the government of Argentina announced emergency rules that banned any passengers from cruise ships to get off the ship. It banned international flights in and out of the country, and the only way for passengers to get off of this ship was if they had a flight out that day out of the airport. They were going to allow flights in and out for that day only, and that was it. And 1,040 or so passengers did not have flights scheduled to get out. The cruise line tried to negotiate with the Port Authority, the government health officials, to stay in port with the passengers and arrange charter flights out, and the government wanted nothing to do with it. They literally told them to get lost, and so the ship had picked up provisions and fuel. It was going to pick up new passengers for its next cruise, but of course they had canceled all of that the week before. So the ship grabbed fuel and food and left Buenos Aires with the crew and the passengers, over 2,000 people. Now, for several weeks, the ship worked its way north until it finally arrived in Miami. The ship did make a stop in Barbados and dropped off one very ill passenger, and reports had been coming out that there really were no cases of the virus on board the ship until just a few days before arriving to the Florida area, when the night before entering the port into Miami, 2 passengers died on board. The ship was immediately brought in. Arrangements had been made with Florida officials and health officials to get people off the ship after testing for symptoms and what have you, and get them onto charter flights and get them out. Now, the problem then was, here we go again. The ship ran into another set of new rules that were immediately instituted. The CDC decided to change the rules for all cruise ships disembarking passengers, and it now became official that no cruise passenger could get off any cruise ship in the United States and immediately take a flight out to get home. All commercial flights were now non-accessible to cruise passengers, whether they were ill or not. And you'd think that a court case would be launched for people's rights, but because most of these people who were stranded were non-Americans, they didn't stand a chance. And so the cruise line has been feverishly working like crazy. Sorry about the play on words, but they have been feverishly working on getting people out of Florida from this ship. Again, I'm talking about people who are not ill. Passengers on board this ship are saying, like this lady right here, you see this picture, test me. Just test me. Give me a test. Within 24 or 48 hours, you'll know whether I have the virus or not. If I don't have the virus, I'm not an issue. Americans right now can board airplanes, if they are so brave to do so, and can fly across the United States without testing. They're just having their temperatures monitored at an airport, if that. Here, people on board the cruise ship are saying, test me, and then you'll know. But right now, what's happening is people on board these ships are being told you can only leave once a bus has been arranged for you to the airport, private transportation. Charter has been arranged for you, private transportation. And the plane that takes you home is allowed to land when you get there. And when you get there, guess what? You're under a 14-day quarantine as well, depending on what country you're going home to. And these people are, of course, incredibly frustrated. You can imagine, since March the 5th. This is April the 10th. Well, the news came out just last night that the Coral Princess only has 13 passengers left on the ship. Out of 1,040, there's only 13 left The problem is these 13 people cannot be flown home from where they've actually come from. We're talking about people who probably would need 2 international flights to return back home, and there aren't enough of them to put on a charter plane to get them home because they're not from the same place. They're from different locales. We're talking probably 3 or 4 or 5 different countries that are just not serviced easily by air out of Miami. And on a charter flight basis, there may not be a plane that can fly them all the way home in one flight. And so you got to charter maybe a 767 airplane that can handle 300 people for 2 people. It's just not going to happen. And so the CDC, with these new rules, have literally trapped these people on these cruise ships. On this particular ship, the Coral Princess, the Princess Cruise Line approached the officials in Miami, city officials, and the state of Florida for permission to house these people in Miami area hotels. Pick any one if you want. We'll put them in a hotel. We'll pay for it. We'll put them in a 2-week quarantine in a Miami hotel. That is allowed under rules of Florida and Miami. But for whatever reason, yesterday, the decision came to the cruise line saying, no, you can't do that. You have to leave the port and go for a 14-day quarantine in the open waters just off the coast of Florida. So, believe it or not, the Coral Princess left the port of Miami last evening with its crew. Again, the crew on board were now clear. They don't have the virus. And these 13 passengers, none have the virus. And they're now forced to sit offshore off the coast of Florida for 2 weeks under a quarantine. Absolutely asinine decisions. This is costing, of course, the cruise line lots of money. It's costing these poor people all kinds of problems with their relatives and family. Who knows how many of these folks are supposed to be home doing whatever they're doing. It is just ridiculous. But why is all this happening? Because there is no testing going on. A widespread testing protocol is not in place in the United States. And this is costing the country billions of dollars in losses, because it would be so cheap to mass test people in bulk. And these folks here, these 13 people, could be tested. If they have no sign of the virus, let them take a commercial flight and fly home. I mean, my goodness. This could have been done with all 1,000 passengers. And now we're talking about 90,000 crew members sitting on at least 100 cruise ships off the coast of the United States. Those 90,000... 70,000 of them could be flown home if they are tested and they're clear. You could have testing for every airplane flight in the United States, where you can't get on a plane unless you test, and there are tests available that can detect this virus now in hours, because the private entrepreneur in America is so good that when a crisis develops, opportunity shows up for entrepreneurs who can invent and come up with new ways for, in this case, testing for this virus. I shake my head up here in Canada. I just can't believe it. Countries around the world are testing millions of their citizens, and that is gearing up left, right, and center. Within the next month, I can see most G20 countries being able to test virtually 10 to 20% of their populations within a week. That would certainly cover all people who want to travel. That could certainly cover most people who want to go back to work. But the United States is behind the 8 ball, and it's just not happening. And here is a classic example of an industry being decimated with what really could be as cheap as a $10 test. It just boggles the mind. Folks, if you agree with me, great. If you don't, great. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. Like I say, there's got to be a better way. This is just not working. I don't know how this works for America. I don't know how this works for human beings. I don't know how it works for the human race, that we just don't have the leading country in the world stepping up and leading the fight against this. Right now, it's the loser. The country with the highest cases of total cases of the virus is America. The country with now the highest number of deaths seems to be America, and it's not stopping. I am just dumbfounded by it all. Folks, stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy. Don't be too mad at this video, but let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you later. Bye for now.